Okay, we have one more rule to look at before we kind of start to mix and match some of this stuff together. And so looking right here at the quotient rule for exponents. So if you remember the product rule, you multiplied. And so with the quotient rule, we're actually going to subtract. And specifically, we're going to subtract the denominator exponent from the numerator exponent if the bases are the same, right? Our bases have to be the same. And then in the previous video, we briefly talked about if we have a power of 0. So any number raised to the power of 0 is going to equal 1 except for 0. That's the only number that we cannot raise to a power of 0. Okay, but we're not going to see that in here at all. Okay, so looking at my first one here, I have 2 to the power of 5 divided by 2 to the power of 3. So following the quotient rule, which is fairly simple, you have those two bases, we bring it together as a single base, and you take the numerator power and subtract the denominator power from it. And so we're going to end up getting 2 to the power of 2, which is 4. Okay, that's probably going to be the easiest way to do it. As you get more comfortable with it, sometimes students will just kind of cancel them out by looking at it. And so if you kind of look at this as an expanded form right here, 2 to the power of 5 is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And then 2 to the power of 3 on bottom is 2 times 2 times 2. And I don't expect you to expand it out, but what students kind of do is that just in their head, they can kind of see that those are going to cancel out, and we're left with 2 times 2, which then gives us 4 right there. On part B right here, let's see, we've got 2 to the power of 3 divided by 2 to the power of 5 this time. So we're going to have 2 to the power of 3 minus 5. You have to subtract the denominator 1. So you're going to end up with 2 to the power of negative 2. Well, from our previous video, we figured out that to remedy this, we have to do the reciprocal. So we're going to flip this to 1 over 2 to the power of 2. And then when you square that 2, it's going to become 1/4. And that's going to be our answer for part B. And so once again, if you kind of thought about expanding this out, you basically have 2 times 2 times 2 on top, right? And on bottom, you have 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Okay, so what happens are these cancel out. Now, when they cancel out, what happens is they really turn into 1s. They kind of, 2 divided by 2 turns into a 1 right here. So the numerator is just 1 times 1 times 1, which is 1. And the denominator is 1 times 1 times 1 times 2 times 2. And that's how you get that 4 on bottom. So 1/4 right there. And then last is example C to kind of give us a little more insight into the 0 exponent. So if you think about this, this is, if you do the quotient rule, it's 2 to the power of 3 minus 3, which gives you 2 to the power of 0. And a lot of students, their initial reaction is, oh, it must be 0, but it's actually going to be 1. And if you think about it, it does make sense, though, because 2 to the power of 3 is technically 8, and 2 to the power of 3 is 8. 8 divided by 8 is 1, right? Any number except for 0 divided by itself is going to equal 1. Okay, so that's kind of what's taking place here. That's kind of the idea. And like I said, back in the previous video, I talked a little bit about that process also. So whenever you have a 0 exponent, it's going to turn into a 1. Okay, with all that said, I think we're going to be ready for our mixed practice next.